Witcher 3 certainly has cool stuff in its gameplay that is totally awesome. Things like particular decoction which automatically puts up magical shield if a very powerful blow hits you, and things like the resolve abilities. But some of those elements which seems cool on paper is practically ineffective in gameplay. Things like Ekimara decoction, which should enable you to steal vitality from your opponents. Specifically, the effects of this particular decoction is so weak that it barely makes any difference. And if you have a certain abilities that enables you to increase the time of effect of food, this decoction has never been used. This is due to the result of bad tuning, probably due to ineffective playtesting. The same is the case for the most of the perks in the skill tree. For example, the maximum effect you can add to your fast attack and strong attack are 50% or 25% increase, which you will need to in order to level up from 8 to 10 levels, so that you can max those two, which is at least 10 hours of gameplay, which is a bit too much for a 25% increase in powers of fast attack and strong attack, which is barely noticeable during gameplay. Let me show you an example which would emphasize how low this is. 25% increase can be achieved by the first upgrade itself in Skyrim. Each ability you unlock or level up improves the adrenaline points generation by 1% each, and a 1% improvement does not feel like powerful at all. Also, the effect of adrenaline points on attack powers also barely noticeable during gameplay. When leveling up, the player should feel more powerful, but in this game it's just on paper. Most of it is barely noticeable in the gameplay. There are places of power in Witcher 3 spread out in an open world can give additional ability points, which is certainly a good thing, which also encourages open world exploration. There are a total of 24 of them, which translates to 24 additional points, which may seem like a lot, but it's barely enough to make up for the slow pace of normal progression. A number of potions and decoction are cancelled out by QN signs, which performs the same function as those decoction. Also, some decoctions are just plain stupid. The werewolf decoction, which eliminates stamina usage outside of the fight, is just so damn useless. Since we have a horse which is adept at traversal, a lot of the potions and decoction are useless in boss fight, as they require you to slay a number of enemies during the fight for it to take effect. A lot of cooler decoctions and potions do not have a noticeable impact on the game due to improvements they provide being just too small to make a difference. A particular decoction works only if the vitality is at 100%, which can work against weaker enemies, but in more challenging fights you are seldom at full vitality, so the decoction is useless when you need it the most. Another decoction accelerates the adrenaline point generation when the first enemy strikes, which again is useless against powerful enemies. The ratio of number of percentage upgrades to new players is mostly negligible. Most of the perks in Witcher 3 skill trees are percentage upgrades, which are a lot when compared to upgrades which give specific powers. The only one adding a bit of depth to the gameplay, by the way. Having new powers as an upgrade is a necessity, as it adds more layers to the combat and would rule out the combat from becoming repetitive as you play for hours. Also, these percentage upgrades are some of the most lame I've seen in AAA RPG space. Really, who would know if their attack power are increased by 5%? A proof of this can be obtained by giving a look at Witcher 3 CD forum. It is very divisive. A lot of people claim that particular upgrade is very useful and is a must, while a lot of other people said to avoid the said upgrade as they felt it is useless. Why is that so? My reasoning is that people don't actually experience those upgrades directly during gameplay and assume that it is giving them an edge. Again, I'm not saying that these upgrades are not working, just that their effects or disadvantages or advantages is too meager to notice from the gameplay perspective. Hence, it does not make the player feel more powerful. Let's talk about the lack of proportion of progression system to the length of the game. As I sum up, the actual problem of Witcher 3's progression system is this. The progression system in this 80 plus hour gameplay is designed as if it is a 20-hour game. Then it is stretched out to fill those 80 hours. There are a lot of good things in the progression system, but almost all of them are accessible only till the very end. The mechanics, which actually adds a layer of depth to the game, can be unlocked at least 40 hours of gameplay. At least after 40 hours of gameplay. So you have to trudge through those boring lame ass sections to get to the good parts, which is just too long. And it adds a lot of depth to the combat, but what use are they? They are not available for more than half of the game. Let's talk about one of the most famous aspects about this work. Let's talk about one of the most popular aspects about Witcher 3's world, the open world. A clear majority of the open world elements of Witcher 3 consist of bandit camps, monster nests, and abandoned site, all of which are essentially the same thing. Let me explain. The abandoned camps are very small areas which have number of abandoned in it, which turns aggressive when you enter those areas. They are out in the open field and most of them look exactly the same. Kill all the bandits and you have completed the bandit camps. There are chests waiting for you in the camp with goodies once you complete the camps. The monster nests are essentially the bandit camps version of monsters. Abandoned sites are bandit camps or monster nests which shows up in cutscenes, which are just some villagers walking in. After the completion and reward you with one more trader, which can give you special goods. The rewards are good, but they don't make up for the staleness and repetitiveness of these open world elements. Why precisely this is bad is because it will take up elements of surprise and intrigue from discovering new locations in the open world. As your brain tells you, it's probably just another bandit camps. In later games like Assassin's Creed Origins and Odyssey, and in games like Metal Gear Solid 5, even though there are a lot of these bandit camps, all of them are laid out differently, and a slight variation in approach is necessary to conquer them effectively, which also takes more effort and time than their counterparts. In Witcher 3, this is not the case, so it is heavily repetitive and also lays the land in too plain. There are a really low number of caves, elven ruins in this game, which will give a lot of depth and intrigue to the open world. The joy of exploring a dark, scary cave system or an ancient dungeons is nearly absent in the open world, save for some quests in the main story, which are great, but it's just 2 or 3. An absolute majority of this open world has to offer is repetitive and directly on the surface, literally and figuratively speaking, which takes out the exploration and elements of intrigue out of this game, which is a big blow to this game's open world. There is a certain lack of diversity and narrative in the villages. The villages in Witcher 3 are almost all the same, with same issues, same look, same kind of people. None of the villages have any kind of narrative on its own. No major locales that differentiate it from other places. No issues that plague a certain village as a whole. For a game that praised for its narrative quality, this is a noticeable drawback. Also, the cities of Oxenford also lack any narrative on its own. It's just there, offering just a change of view from the villages. But the city of Novigrad stands out as a direct contrast to all of this. The city is quite well done, with incidents and narratives specific to the problem that the city faces. It also has a feel of its own. A lot of the elements like the Thieves Guild, underground sewer, the occasional external priest, violence, racism, and quite a lot of interesting stuffs. It also has 1 or 2 secrets of its own too,